Hi folks, and welcome to Gotham City Knights, our channel dedicated to everything related to Batman Miniature Game 3rd Edition. This video is part of our Miniatures Spotlight series called Moment of Glory, where we take a look at some of our favourite minis in 3rd Edition. We'll look to explain why we love them, try to visualise their rules and their uses on a board, and then take a light-hearted attempt to grade them on our unique unscientific scale. However, if you're new to BMG and want to learn what it is and how to play, we have an entire video series dedicated to that you should probably check out first. Other than that, let's jump right into today's topic. Today's topic in Moment of Glory is the Rebirth version of Bane. This is the quintessential big Bane to me. The rule of cool definitely applies here, especially with this miniature. Very menacing, stepping over that bat beacon, smashing on its way, wearing that luchador mask, and obviously you can see the venom or titan, whatever it is, pulsing through his veins from the backpack. He's not the Tom Hardy Bane that we all came very familiar with in the silver screen Christopher Nolan verse, but he is the mix of brute and brain that we see in front of us right now. So, as I mentioned before, in the Moment of Glory we're going to have some form of vague scale of greatness for each of these miniatures. So I'm going to be looking at them in 5 different topics. That's going to be stat line, efficiency, lethality, tricks, and scoring. So each of those I will assign a score of either a nothing, a stun damage, or a blood damage. Obviously blood being better than stun. At the end, we'll tot them all up to see how many blood and stun the miniature scores. So let's jump right in. First of all, as we said, is stat line. So Rebirth Bane is a leader, obviously, and as you can see he has 9 willpower and 10 endurance, so he's quite tanky in that sense in terms of the amount of health he has. He has a massive maximum 6 attack, but quite susceptible 3 defense. The 3+ strength is good. I think it's only 3+ defense because he has access to things which give him bonuses to strength. He is a little slow on the movement side, that old movement stat of 2 translating to 8-inch movement. To me, for the amount of points that he costs, I actually think he probably gets a stun here for the stat line. He does have some things which are downsides, like as I said, a little bit susceptible with that 3 defense, especially to guns and things that are going to cause blood damage. He's pretty much going to not have to worry about stun damage because he has 2 traits which add to this. The large and desensitized traits. Large meaning he can ignore 1 stun damage per attack, and desensitized allowing him to not be knocked out at all from an accumulation of stun. He does also allow the crew to take elite soldiers of fortune, but with his huge price tag that means that it's even more restrictive whenever you're taking these elite miniatures in the crew. So just to reiterate there, Bane for his stat line gets a stun. So next we'll take a look at efficiency. So Bane Rebirth, if you were to give him an audacity every turn, is probably quite a sponge for it because of obviously his impact on the game. You spent a lot of points bringing him, but at the same time he doesn't have the options that other miniatures might do. He doesn't have a special action at all, not even a bad one to use, which means that he's not getting the full use out of that audacity. Now, once he gets into combat and starts removing people, I'm sure there'll be no problem there, but it does harm him in terms of the flexibility that he brings. Now, passively, which is always good for efficiency, he has a lot of effects which help the rest of his crew out. So obviously he's got a bigger base, which means that his Inspire reaches further. He's on that 40 mil. He has the Cool Under Fire trait, which means that Inspire radius of 8 inches is also going to include an ability for veterans to remove negative effects on them as they activate. Meaning that you can get rid of those sorts of things, like the Joker might put down poison. Well, I'm getting rid of that. Or somebody might have blinded you. Oh, well, I'm getting rid of that and I can continue moving. So it's really good for that. He gives +1 to your resources every turn through that trait as well. Meaning, again, you can afford more of those nice resource options on your objective cards. He has the mastermind trait, which gives you +1 to your take the lead rolls, which if you play enough games, you will want to win those, especially with something as big as Bane. Now, as I say, it all comes down to it. I think he has enough pluses to more than even out the minuses in this, but I don't think I could give him a blood for it. So again, I'm going to give Bane a stun for efficiency. Next up, we take a look at lethality. This one's probably going to raise a few queries and a few questions, but let's go through it. So he is a master fighter, Bane. He's an attack 6. You know, that is super hard to block. You're going to be rolling a lot of dice. You're going to be putting through a lot of those reinforced gloves, double stun. You know, that master fighter gives you a +1 to hit, so anything that's defense 3 or defense 4 is probably going down in a hurry. Even the big leaders that are in defense 5 will probably struggle to actually stop him knocking them out. But that's where it stops. It's a punch out. You know, you knock that big Batman out, that Batman is probably going to get up at the end of the turn. He's probably going to continue playing the rest of the game. The problem that is with this Bane, and with anyone who relies solely on stun, is that they need a follow-up. They need someone to come in with that handcuffs trait or handcuffs equipment that Bane allows one in the crew. And they have to be ready at the right spot at the right time with a special action to be able to rest. Or you need a finisher, someone with a double blood or a single blood weapon that can just come and wail on the corpse. Effectively, it all keys into that efficiency we talked about before. He wants to do it all. You always want to give him audacity. You always want to get him into the combat, but he'll struggle in terms of doing permanent damage. He is a scary prospect for any list, and obviously he brings those venom doses as well that just make him even more reliable in getting all that stun damage down. So if you can find a way around it, find a way to bring like a Slipknot or bring handcuffs in your list, then yes, he is definitely something which has to be dealt with on every turn. Again, because of the downsides, I'm going to have to give him a stun for lethality though. Next up, we look at tricks, and you would imagine that someone, again, this kind of beat stick isn't going to come with all that many tricks, but Bane's background is that he's always been a super smart individual. Yes, he's obviously hyped on steroids or the Batman version of steroids, but he's always been the kind of guy that's going to ruin your day with his plans as well as his fists. So this Bane is absolutely no difference there. He brings all sorts of different things. We've talked about already the I will break you trait, which gives you a choice at the start of the game. So it gives you a bit of flexibility pre-game, whether you want to take 3 extra venom doses that you can freely use on any of your crew during your activation, so popping them out on your friends as you go. He can choose Exhaustive Planner, which basically allows him to cancel 1 resource, and you know how some of those resources can be so important for your opponent. So just basically getting to say nah is huge. And then obviously the other one was the Close Combat Master that we already talked about. If you really need that reliable punching, that's there for that. Obviously we've talked about the things in efficiency, the cool under fire and the resources and the mastermind. Those are huge, just passive bonuses. He does bring the potential for the Osito resource card, well, objective card. The resource and the objective are pretty damn good. The resource allows you to basically scare models that are within 6 inches of someone with alias Bane, effectively making them easy targets for not just Bane but anybody else in your list. The objective though is even more fun when you consider it. Basically, whenever your opponent pops down a suspect marker, you can use the Osito card to actually replace that with the little teddy bear. And once that little teddy bear is out on the board, Bane can basically make an accelerated beeline towards that teddy bear, and he gets plus bonuses to hit again if he's if this person is holding that teddy bear or they're within a certain radius. So it allows you to sort of put a either no-go zone or a Bane is going to motor up the highway to get to that spot, because obviously, as we said, one of his downsides is his speed, so this gives him a one-track mind to get up the board. Looking at it as well, a lot of the resource deck can actually sort of help Bane through his weaknesses and problems. So one thing we've always said is speed. You've got the Black Ops card, which you can use the extra resource plus others that you get from your traits to go through a sewer that's actually one of your suspects for the rest of the turn. He can use the hard point to pick up extra venom doses, and venom doses key into one of the things that actually keeps him alive, and that is the invulnerability trait from the venom and rage. So whenever Bane pops a venom dose, he actually becomes invulnerable to all, not all damage, but every time he is dealt damage, he basically gets to ignore 2 of it. And then remember, on top of that, he has the large trait, meaning he can ignore 1 stun from every attack as well. So there's a lot of things that he can do to keep himself going. But again, to get that invulnerability, you have to use him early in the turn. You have to use a venom dose. And he has tons of those to go around, but he has to be basically a sitting duck for the rest of the turn to get that off. So it's definitely a double-edged sword. In there, you've also got the free-for-all trait, resource card that allows you to, again, use doses for free across the board. And you've got the Venom Lab equipment that Bane allows you to bring, meaning that one of your henchmen can actually deal out venom doses or Titan doses to either Bane or other members of the crew. So again, I think a lot of the tricks that Bane brings are compensating at times. It sort of plays into helping him get to the places he wants to be, especially for speed wise. So again, I'm going to give him a solid stun for tricks. Last and least, actually, in fact, is the scoring section. And I think this is where Bane really suffers from not having that flexibility of being able to do more than one thing in a turn, especially whenever he's such an audacity hog, because you want him punching people. Scoring for him is probably the hardest thing. There are not very many cards in the deck that are going to benefit you from scoring with Bane. There are 3 copies of the Search and Destroy. These should be the sort of things that Bane finds very easy to score if you can get them into his hand at the right time, because those venom doses that he's using, they allow him to effort whenever he wants. So that's fine. He should really be easy to score those 6 points in your list. As I mentioned, there is the Osito card that you can only bring if you bring Bane. It can be neutered by someone literally just taking that teddy bear and putting it on a rooftop that Bane can't get to, or just by user error, playing it at the wrong time, maybe too early, maybe in the wrong place, so that Bane actually doesn't get the bonuses, nor does he really get somewhere that he wants to be whenever he has to go and pick up that little teddy bear. Other than that, he does bring obviously the veteran trait, which allows him to key into the ground war card, which is one of the 3 pointers in the Bane deck. But you have to consider that for 160 points, that's a tax. You're only getting 1 veteran for 160 points, whereas you can get 2 or 3 veterans for another leader plus 3 of the henchmen. So whilst it adds 1, it really is the opportunity cost of not taking a cheaper leader. He does bring a fear factor, so he does create no-go zones on the board for your opponent if they want to actually have someone there and be alive and awake at the end of the turn. But I feel he pulls in a different direction sometimes than how the deck wants to score. And again, the need to early activate him in a turn can really play into him being controlled, I guess, through the rest of rounds. So for scoring, I have to give Bane an actual 0 point. So overall, Bane Rebirth, as much as he's a very, very cool model, he comes out with a quite characteristic 4 stun as his final score. As I've said, he is an absolutely wonderful one-trick pony at knocking people out. Put him in a ring, he's going to be the world champion. He is, however, inflexible, a little bit slow, and I don't know if this is unfair, but I think he punishes loose play on both your opponent and yourself. So if you don't manage him, then you might find yourself out of position, or vulnerable to attacks from guns. Whereas if your opponent doesn't consider him and his threat range, they can end up with a lot of guys absolutely KO face down on the floor. He's scary and he brings that fear factor, as I said, but then he can be an easy target for blood damage. And his strengths really lead him to be probably more predictable than you want to be, especially in those middle rounds of the game. So there we have it. That is the Bane Rebirth review. He's a model I love. He's a character I like, but at the same time I don't think he goes far enough for his point cost just yet. We'll see if Knight are going to do any sort of errata in the upcoming app. I'd love to see it, because this is a miniature I painstakingly painted to my very poor standard, but I enjoy it quite a lot. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. All that's left to say is thanks for watching this short video. Stay tuned to the channel by subscribing to get the all-important next dollop of content. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please leave us a comment. Also, you can watch us put the theory into action in our battle reports, and to continue the discussion, you should probably call into the Arkham Rejects Discord server that I'll link below. Catch you next time, folks.